Hi, this is David with Metropolitan Ivy Tutoring. If I had to teach one math skill, I think it would be the one I'm going to do today. It's turning word problems into equations. This is a huge skill because you really can't solve a word problem without turning it into numbers and variables. So that's what we're going to work on today. We're going to go through this step by step. And the first step is just to read the problem carefully and especially read the end of the problem, the last sentence, which is what the question is actually asking for. Step 2 is to go through and read sentence by sentence and turn each sentence into numbers and variables. That brings us to step 3. Get all your raw materials together. That's all your numbers, variables, and math symbols. Then step 4, you're going to roll up your sleeves and actually start constructing this equation, right? And it may take a couple of tries, or it may take different ways of putting the numbers together to make a good equation. Then once you've got that, you solve the equation. And for the final step, you have to go back and make sure, did the answer that I came up with really answer the question? Before you mark that answer choice, make sure that you answered what the question is actually asking you to do. So we're going to go through this with an example from the SHSAT handbook. And here it is. On Wednesday, a baker produced 100 more loaves of bread than were produced on Tuesday. On Thursday, the baker produced 50 fewer loaves than were produced on Tuesday. If the total number of loaves produced on all 3 days was 230, how many loaves were produced on Wednesday? So, nice wordy problem for you. So, step 1 was to read over the question, which is what we just did. And now we want to ask ourselves, what is this question asking us for at the end, in the last sentence? And it's asking us how many loaves were produced on Wednesday. So we want to get that clear in our minds as we're creating a solution to this. Then, step 2, we're going to go through this problem sentence by sentence and turn each sentence into numbers and variables. So let's look at the first sentence. On Wednesday, a baker produced 100 more loaves of bread than were produced on Tuesday. So the first question we have to ask ourselves is, what is our variable going to be? And oftentimes students say X. I do not like using X as a variable because X is kind of a shady character. You don't really know what X is, and it's really easy to forget what X stands for. So I like to choose a variable that obviously stands for the thing that it stands for. So here we have Wednesday, right? We need to know how many loaves were baked on Wednesday. So I would choose W as a nice variable for that, because that's a clear variable. Another variable we could use is T for Tuesday, right? To represent how many loaves of bread were baked on. So to put that first sentence together, we can just say, okay, W equals 100 plus T, to show that Wednesday there were 100 more loaves of bread than were baked on Tuesday. Right? That's pretty clear. Okay, next sentence. On Thursday, the baker produced 50 fewer loaves than were produced on Tuesday. So here we have another variable. We have Thursday, and we already used T for Tuesday, but we can use TH for Thursday just for clarity's sake. And we also have to notice the word fewer, right? Because fewer shows us that we're going to use a minus sign here. So let's turn that second sentence into TH equals T minus 50, right? To show that there's 50 fewer loaves on Thursday than were produced on Tuesday. So Thursday, TH equals T minus 50. Okay. Next sentence. If the total number of loaves produced on all 3 days was 230, how many loaves were produced on Wednesday? So now we want the total number of loaves. So we can represent that by T plus W plus TH, right? Those are the total of our days. And then we know the total of that is 230, because that's the total of the amount of loaves of bread that were produced on those days. So we have a problem now, because we have a T, a W, and a TH. And we can't add those up because they're all different variables. It's kind of like trying to add apples and oranges together. So we want to add apples and apples. We want to put them all in terms of one variable. So we have to take what we're building and kind of retool it a little bit. So let's look back at our raw materials. What tools do we have that we could use to build a better equation? And well, I see a lot of T's over here. We have T plus 100, we have T minus 50. So let's put everything in terms of T. And we're going to do something here called substitution, right? Like when you come to class and your teacher's absent and there's a substitute and everybody goes crazy in the class. It's not exactly like that, but it's taking one thing and substituting it for something else. Here we're going to take W and substitute that with T plus 100 because they mean the same thing. Then we can take Thursday, or TH, and we're going to substitute that for T minus 50 because that's how many loaves of bread were produced on Thursday. So now we have a nice solvable equation. We have T plus 100 plus T minus 50 equals 230. From here, we can just solve, and this is sort of the easy part. First, just combine like terms. So we have 3 T's here. We can put those together and turn that into 3T. And then we have a plus 100 and a minus 50. So putting that together, we get 3T plus 50 equals 230. So let's just get all our variables to one side. So let's subtract 50 from both sides, and we get 3T equals 180. Divide by 3 on both sides, and we get T equals 60. So is that the answer? Well, let's go back and remember step 6 brings us back to step 1. Let's make sure we're answering what the question asked for. And was the question asking for how many loaves of bread were baked on Tuesday? No, it was asking us how many loaves were baked on Wednesday. So we have to take that T, that 60, which is the loaves of bread that were baked on Tuesday, and we have to add 100 to that. Because remember, on Wednesday, there were 100 more loaves of bread baked. That's our W equals T plus 100 on the side here. So the number of loaves that were baked on Wednesday is 160. And now let's look at our answer choices here. Of course, they give us 60 as an answer choice in case you forgot to go and look back at the question and see what it was asking. But we're not going to pick that. We're not going to get fooled. So we're going to pick the correct answer here, which is 160 loaves of bread. So let's review. First step was to read the question carefully and figure out what it's asking for. The second step is to go sentence by sentence and turn those words into numbers, variables, and symbols. Next, we get all our raw materials together. Step 4 is to build our equation. Once it's built nice and solid, we figured out how to make an equation that works. We just solve for the variable. And finally, we go back and check, did we just really answer the question they were asking? Because it would be so silly to get this question wrong because we just solved for the wrong thing or because we didn't read the last part of the question. Thank you for watching. Email us at info@metroivy.com if you're interested in tutoring or group classes. And be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more great educational content. Have a great day.